Hello everyone, welcome to this Age of Alchemy battle report, where today we have the Followers of Nature's Bounty versus the Long Drawn Death over here. Today it is going to be a short 70-75 point game as it was last time, and we are going to play Secure Ground today. That is the game where the end you split the table into quarters and work out how many models you have in each quarter. Most number of quarters wins. For the Followers of Nature's Bounty, we have an Alchemist with staff, we have a Skirmisher with throwing knives and a dagger, we have a Marksperson with bow and basic weapon, and then we have two Barbarians, both with a single basic weapon each. On top of that, we also have one each of the 5 concoctions. For the Long Drawn Death, we have an Alchemist with basic weapon, we have a Fanatic with great weapon, we have two Cultists with bludgeons, we have a Marksperson with crossbow and dagger, and on the end we have a Favoured pet, which is a dog. And then to top it all off, we have the 5 concoctions for this group. And that is both players deployed. So as you can see today, we have quite a heavily built up table with lots of different cover. We're going to play the usual buildings, stonework, and that offers heavy cover or hard cover. And we're going to play that wood and other flimsier materials will only offer soft cover. In addition, we're going to play a special rule for the table today, which is if a model is to fall into this water, then at the end of the turn it will take a wound. Then from the next turn onwards, if it doesn't leave the water by climbing up one of the various ledges or edges nearby, then it will suffer a further wound until the model is removed or they get out of the water. We'll learn more about that in the game itself. Now we're going to go and show you where the models are deployed on the board. On the Followers of Nature's Bounty side, we have a Barbarian with basic weapon. We have the Marksperson with bow and basic weapon hiding behind here. The Skirmisher with throwing knives and dagger is here. Next to them is the Alchemist with staff. And then all the way over on this dock side is the Barbarian with basic weapon. As for the Long Drawn Death, on their side we can see the Cultist with bludgeon is here, followed by the other Cultist with bludgeon over here. We have the Marksperson with crossbow and dagger. Next to them is the great weapon Fanatic. And then all the way over on this far side we have the Alchemist and their faithful dog. Start of the first turn, we will now roll for initiative. My opponent gets a 4. I get a 6. So my opponent will be having 2 reaction tokens and I'll be going first. At the end of the movement phase, we did not have any reactions. However, we can see the Barbarian has moved up over here. Marksperson has popped up onto this building to get a better line of sight. The Skirmisher is heading into this central bit to get some targets. The Alchemist has just moved up behind these barrels. And this Barbarian has rather precariously put himself on this bridge. The Alchemist over here is eyeing up that Barbarian. The Favoured pet, or dog, is just sat here waiting. And then the Fanatic and the Marksperson have both moved up onto the bridge. And then finally, you can certainly see at least one of them, one Cultist with a bludgeon, and the other Cultist with a bludgeon are just hiding behind this area here, waiting for that Barbarian. At the start of my shooting phase, my Alchemist is going to use the number 5, the Vine Secretion Dart, and they're going to pick... Well, they were going to pick this Barbarian, but as we can see, he has decided to react. I'm going to measure where my opponent wants him to go, which I believe is just up and in there, and take the reaction token with him. However, I can still see him. He will just get the benefit of hard cover for the building. The Alchemist normally would hit on a 2. They have moved, which takes it down to a 3, and the opponent is now in hard cover, making it a 5. They are within 12 inches, so it's not going to be any penalties there. So we're looking at a 5. And that's a hit. Because that's a hit, that model is now poisoned. So at the beginning of each turn, they would roll a d6. On a 1 to 2, they would take a wound. Mark them. For my next and last bit of shooting, this marksperson here is going to go after this marksperson over here. We have measured it, and it is within 18, so it's within short range of the crossbow. However, the only penalty at the moment is that they have moved. The marksperson at the other side is not getting cover. That means that it will be a -2 to hit, with it being a crossbow. No. No, it's the number 2, our favourite number on this channel. At the start of my opponent's shooting phase, originally they were looking at their Skirmisher going after the Fanatic over here. Unfortunately, when measuring it, they are 12 inches away when the throwing knives only have a range of 8. On top of that, they've decided that the marksperson is instead going to fire at the Fanatic, who is within range. We checked, they are not getting cover, so the only penalties will be movement and long range, meaning that they will also hit on a 5. What is it with the number 2? To finish off their shooting, my opponent is going to have their Alchemist use number 4 on their concoctions, which is Call of the Wild, and I believe that they are going to be picking this model over here, the Fanatic. They get to now roll 2 dice, and for each one that is a 5 or 6, I take a wound. So let's see if they can roll. 1, so I will take a wound, and the alchemy is finished. After the Call of the Wild was used, I disengaged 2 inches forward, as though I had escaped to combat, as stated in the rules. As you can see, that is the end of the turn 1 shooting phase. There's going to be no combat. We've already measured that nobody's in range of anyone else. So it's just straight on to turn 2. Before we do anything at the start of turn 2, this model here is poisoned. So we're going to roll to see what happens. On a 1 or 2, they take a wound. They do, unfortunately. So they will take a wound and are going to have to roll at the start of each turn, hopefully not getting any further 1s or 2s. Now that that's out of the way, let's roll for initiative for turn 2. My opponent rolls a 1. I roll a 5, so again they will get 2 reaction tokens. I was about to move this model in my move phase, and then my opponent decided that this marksperson here is going to fire a snapshot. They're going to do so before I go anywhere, so it's going to be long range, same as last turn. There was no cover, so we'll go from a 3 to a 4. Let's see what they can roll. A 3, ooh, close, but no. With the rest of that, I'm just going to move my Fanatic. There. At the end of the turn 2 movement phase, my Cultist with Bludgeon and Cultist with Bludgeon have moved up here to face off against the Barbarian with basic weapon over here. The marksperson who reacted has stayed up there. The Skirmisher has run down here to try and get line of sight to my Fanatic. The Alchemist has remained over here, and my marksperson has remained up here. Over here we have the Barbarian squaring off against my Alchemist, and then finally, right at the back here, we have the doggo just hiding there. For the start of my shooting phase, this Alchemist is going to use their number 1, the Snake Venom Dart, which is a ranged weapon, single-use ranged weapon with range of 24 and damage of 5, and it is going to go into this Barbarian over here. I have moved, however the Barbarian is most definitely within 4 inches, so those two will cancel each other out. So we'll be hitting on a 2. That's a hit. I'll just shuffle him back. So because that's a hit, it will be damage 5 against resistance 4 for the Barbarian, so it'll be +1. And that will go up to a 5, putting him on 2 wounds. Like last turn, my Marksperson here with the crossbow is going to fire all the way over to this Marksperson. Neither of us have moved, and it is still within short range, and he's still not getting cover, so it will be on my flat 3 this time. It's a hit. It will be damage 4 against resistance 3, so it'll be a +1 to wound here. No, I'll count that. It is a 1 and a complete miss. For their shooting phase, my opponent is going to start with their Alchemist, who is going to use a crumble on this building, which is number 1. The only model either in or in base contact is this model here. So on a 3+, they will take a wound. Yay! Good old number 2. For the next bit of shooting, my opponent's Marksperson is going to fire down at this cultist here. They are within 12 inches. However, they have already used a reaction token in the movement phase, so it will be a -1 hitting on a 4. That's a hit. Damage 3 for the bow, resistance 3 for the cultist. Let's see if we can get a wound. It's a regular wound, so I'll just pop that onto the cultist. For the last bit of shooting, this Skirmisher here is going to throw all 3 knives into the Fanatic, because it's the only target in range. He is more than 4 inches away, so we'll be at long range, and I'm giving hard cover from these shots, so they'll be hitting on 6s. As we are only throwing them into one model, we're just going to roll all 3 at the same time. So roll 3 dice. That 1/6 we can roll again, see if we can get a wound. Damage 3 against resistance 3. It's a wound. Take that away and pop that on. Put that back. There we go. As that was the end of the shooting phase, we have now moved on to the combat phase, and my first combat is going to be my Alchemist into this Barbarian, who has decided to react and go first. So with his 3 inches, he's going to pop around the obstacle and charge me, taking all of his many counters with him. So first of all, he has 1 attack hitting on a 4 with that combat skill. And he fails, so I'm going to roll to attack back, hitting on a 3. That's a hit, and wounding on a 5 or 6, damage 3 against resistance 4. And that's enough to take him out of the game. Finally, I'm going to roll and see how far I go. 3 inches, so I'm actually going to use that to just hop over the obstacle I was on. Next, I'm going to charge my Fanatic into the Skirmisher over here. So 2 inches will get us around there. Yeah, 4 inches, or easily get into combat here. Ooh, we're moving all the buildings. So I'm going to roll to see if I can hit into this building here. Hitting on a 4 with the great weapon. That's a hit. Didn't need the reroll for making the charge. And we're looking at damage 4 plus 2 for the great weapon, so 6 against resistance 3. So I'm getting a +3 to this. So that would be a 6, and that would be 2 wounds from a critical wound there. The Skirmisher is going to attack back. 1 attack, hitting on a 3. They hit, and wounding on a 5/6, damage 2 for their dagger, resistance 3 for the Fanatic. Ooh, just not enough. So they're going to try and roll to run away, which is on a 2+, which they do. I'll let my opponent back away, and it's going to be over there, and then I'm going to roll a 1, so I'm actually just going to sort of follow up behind them, and there we go. Next we have the Cultist here with the bludgeon. He is going to go after the Barbarian, but he's going to use his move to get himself round the back, so if I win I can force him forward. First of all, he's got 1 attack hitting on a 4 with that bludgeon. No, but he is a cultist that charged, so I can re-roll that. Yeah, we'll count that. It's in the water, but it is a 1, so no, that's a fail. The Barbarian's going to attack back now, hitting on a 4. And he fails to hit, so on a 4+ for his intelligence, he'll disengage. He doesn't, so I'll have a free attack, which fails to hit. So the Barbarian will try and run away, which he doesn't. So we'll go again, which I hit. I don't get a wound and we keep rolling in the water. So he's going to try and run away once again. And he does, so he gets the back away 2 inches, which will be away from me. And then I will roll and go 3. So I'm just going to sort of come up this way and threaten him a bit more. For my last charge in the combat phase, my cultist here is going to go a few inches and go after the Barbarian. I'm going to roll to see if I can hit him with my bludgeon, which I don't. Nope, that's definitely a miss. And he retaliates, where he hits, and then rolls to wound damage 4 against resistance 3. That's a critical, so I take 2 wounds and try and run away on a, should be a 3 or more. I do, so I'm going to back away to here and just sort of box him in a bit. And he rolls a 5. So we'll come back once we've moved the Barbarian. Okay, actually it turns out he's just going to go back there, so that is fine. We did actually do the intelligence rolls for the wounds he suffered off camera. He's okay. But now the Barbarian is going to charge back into him, who is going to charge into the Cultist. Like so. The Barbarian has 1 attack, hitting on a 4. They hit. It's damage 4, resistance 3, so +1 to their wound roll. It's a 6, yeah, that's fair enough. It is on flat ground, we will count it. So that is my Cultist removed. And he gets to go 4 inches. Around 2. So that's the end of the combat phase for turn 2, and the end of turn 2 in general. This Barbarian has moved round here. This Cultist with Bludgeon has moved up here. This Marksperson has stayed still. The Skirmisher and Fanatic are still here. This Alchemist, still here at the back. This Marksperson has stayed up here. And then finally we have the Alchemist over here. And who can forget little doggo, who is hiding back here. On to turn 3, we don't need to roll determination. We've both only lost 1 model, and the model that was poisoned by my Alchemist has been removed. So we are going to roll for initiative. My opponent getting a 1, and I get a 6. So in this case, they will only get 1 reaction token. So at the end of the movement phase, we have the Barbarian has moved up here, as has the Cultist. The Marksperson has once again stayed still. The Alchemist and Skirmisher have moved up together so that he can be healed later. That's obviously going to happen. The Fanatic has stayed put so that she didn't get reacted against. The Marksperson has stayed over here. The Alchemist with basic weapon is over here. And then all the way at the back is the Favoured pet. To start with, I am going to use my Alchemist's concoctions. I'm going to use the number 6, and I'm going to pick a point within 12, which is going to be, it's going to be here, but we'll just pop this dice down here to remind us where it is. It's going to be there, and on a 3+ it goes off. It does go off. So I now have to work out, we have 2 models that are within 3 inches. The Marksperson is miles out. So on a 4+, that model will take a wound, and on a 4+, that model will take a wound. So we're going to start with the important one, the Skirmisher. No. The Alchemist. No as well. So unfortunately, that did nothing. Following on from that somewhat failure from the Alchemist there, this Marksperson is instead going to fire at the Skirmisher rather than the enemy Marksperson. He is definitely within short range, but is getting hard cover from this, so it's going to be on a 5. That's a hit. It's damage 4 against resistance 3, so it's a +1 to wound. And that's just enough to get rid of the Skirmisher. Bye-bye. There he goes. After the Skirmisher has been removed from play, instead of healing anyone up, my opponent is actually going to use their number 6 Rain Wizard concoction to make everything rough ground. So let's see if it goes off on a 2+. It doesn't, so we're just going to remove that from play. For the final bit of shooting in this phase, my opponent's Marksperson is going to fire down into the Cultist over here. It will be within 12, no penalties, so just be hitting on a straight 3. That's a hit. Roll to wound, it will be on a damage 3, resistance 3. And that's a critical, so that is him out of the game. After a rather stellar shooting effort from both sides, we can see that no models are in combat range. So we're going to end this turn without a combat phase. And also on top of that, my opponent didn't actually get a chance to use their reaction because I could guarantee they were going to use it that this Barbarian here would have charged into my Cultist to deny him his charge bonus. Going into the start of turn 4 for determination rolls, my opponent has 2 models out, so could fail on a 1, which they don't. And I'm going to see if I can pass as well. I also have 2 models out. I do as well, both getting the same result there, wow. We are now in the initiative phase for turn 4. Because of superstition, I'm going to roll first, because it seems whenever my opponent rolls first, they end up going second. No, maybe not. Yep, my opponent gets 1 reaction token, and I go first again. At the end of the movement phase for turn 4, the Barbarian has come round this way. The dog is hiding himself over here. The Marksperson with crossbow has stayed put. Fanatic has ran round this way. My Alchemist has ran over here. And my opponent's Alchemist has moved up to here. And their Marksperson has also popped down from the building to get a better shot on my Alchemist. So first bit of the shooting phase for this turn, my Alchemist is going to use his number 2 and put it onto my opponent's Alchemist. It is a ranged weapon with range 24, so they're in 12, so they're definitely in half range. And I have the penalty for moving and them being in soft cover. So I'm going to roll over here to see if it hits, which will be on a 4. It does. So I've hit my opponent. That means that they are unable to shoot, react, or charge in a combat until the rest of the end of this turn. And then because it does damage 3, I'm also going to roll to see if I can get a wound. I can. They take a regular wound. With my opponent's Alchemist now stuck in place, my crossbowman here is going to fire, knowing that they can't react against it. It is definitely within short range, 18 inches. They haven't moved, well, my model hasn't moved, so we'll be hitting on a 3. I'm going to go roll it over next to the Alchemist. That's enough for a hit. So it is damage 4 against resistance 3. The staff doesn't count for the shooting phase. Yeah, it's a 1, and we're going to count that, even though it fell in the water. So, yeah, failed to wound. On my opponent's side, as their Alchemist has been hit by that paralysis dart and cannot react or do anything at all, they are going over to their Marksperson, who is going to take a shot at my Alchemist over here. As we can see, they're above 12 inches, so they're in long range for the bow. And they have moved, there's no cover, so it's going to be -2, making it a 5. Which they get. This is bad for me because, as you can see, my Alchemist is on the edge of the water, or edge of this bridge over the water here. So if he gets wounded and fails his intelligence, he will be falling in. So let's see if he can be wounded. Oh, no, not good enough. Once again in this turn, simply because we're just sort of moving around the board to try and capitalize on quarters, we can see that everyone is out of combat range of an enemy, so there is absolutely no chance again of a combat this turn. We are going to end this turn and go straight into turn 5. We have reached the start of turn 5. We have to roll determination again. I'm going to go first and pass again on a 6. My opponent is also going to pass on a 6. Wow, we re-roll those 6s when we need them. After us once again getting a spectacular pass on determination, we're going to roll for initiative. I'll go first. Getting a 1. My opponent gets a 2, so I am going second for once with a reaction token. At the end of the movement phase, there was no reactions. My opponent has moved their Barbarian up here. I've moved my dog up here. The Marksperson has stayed put. My Fanatic has tried to head up this way. My opponent's Marksperson and Alchemist have both stayed put. and my Alchemist has moved himself around onto the bridge. With my opponent going first in the shooting phase, for once, they are going to use the Entangle number 2 on my Alchemist here. On a 3+, it will go off. It does, so unfortunately my Alchemist is entangled, stopping him doing anything. After that display from the Alchemist, this Marksperson here is going to fire at my Alchemist. He is within 12 inches and hasn't moved, so there'll be no penalties there. So we'll see if he can hit on a 3. He does! We'll see if he can wound, damage 3, resistance 3. And unfortunately he does not. Due to my Alchemist being entangled, my only bit of shooting is this crossbowman. He's going to spin around, or this Marksperson certainly. He's going to spin around and he's going to fire a shot straight into the Barbarian, which he can do without passing over the dog, so he's okay. As I haven't moved, but he's getting heavy cover or hard cover, it will be a -2 to hit. So I'm going to roll for it back here. No, that's unfortunately a miss. As my opponent was about to go first with the Barbarian, my brave dog here has decided to use a reaction token. Just going to pop it down there, and is going to charge into the Barbarian, not away from him, to see if we can't push him back. So I have 1 attack, which I'm going to roll over here. It'll be hitting on a 4. Well, the dog tried. My opponent is going to retaliate, also hitting on a 4. They do. They are damage 4. The dog is only resistance 2, so it's +2 whatever they roll. That's a 6. So dog takes 2 wounds, and I try to roll to disengage, which is only going to be on a 4. No, my opponent's Barbarian gets to attack again, where he hits. Anything but a 1. Yeah, the dog has been removed. And no matter what, and the Barbarian is going 4 inches. He's actually going to go 4 inches back, strangely enough, which will put him just at the bottom of the stairs here. Oh, poor doggo. Next, my opponent is going to have their Alchemist, who is easily within 6 inches of my Alchemist, pop round and charge into base contact. Take their wound with them. Now, my opponent has 1 attack, hitting on a 3 with the staff. So I'm going to roll for that, which hits. However, the staff is -1 damage, so there'll be damage 2 to my resistance 3, and they don't wound. I'm going to retaliate back, because I'm allowed to do that. 1 attack, hitting on a 3. Which hits. Because of the staff being in combat, it is a +1 resistance, so it'll be 3 against 4. And I don't wound either. Neither of us is wounded, but I'm going to try and disengage. Which I do, so I will fall back that way. Even though I'm entangled, I do still need to disengage at the end of a combat. And my opponent's going to go 5 inches with theirs, which I think is probably going to put them, yeah, they're going to go back where they were. So we've now come to the end of the combat phase for turn 5, and also the end of the turn as well. The Barbarian has moved back over to claim this quarter. My Marksperson has stayed put. My Fanatic is still trying to bravely run up and over this bridge. This Marksperson is out here again. The Alchemists are both again squaring off over the bridge. However, mine is entangled, so he will not really be doing much next turn. And now we come into the determination roll for turn 6. This is going to be the last turn, as it is with these small games, but we'll see what happens here. So my opponent rolls first, and rolls a 3. I'm going to roll mine, and roll a 6. Wow. I think that's 3 in a row. Either way, both of us have passed our determination. So with the last initiative roll of the game, or initiative phase of the game, I get a 5, my opponent gets a 1. So they are going to get both of the counters and go second. In the move phase, I was going to move my Fanatic, so my opponent has decided to react with their Marksperson, but they're going to shoot me after I've moved rather than before. So I'm going to have my Fanatic run up and over these stairs. They can just make it to the other side, like so. However, actually no, I'm going to move them back here, purely because then they will get hard cover while being shot upwards and at. So my opponent is going to roll to hit them. It will be within 4 inches, but it will be hard cover. So it'll be -2 +1. So in that case, it will go down to a 4. My opponent hits. Now they've got to roll to see if they can wound on a 50-50. No, they fail to wound with a number 2, everyone's favourite. At the end of the movement phase for that turn, the Barbarian has stayed put because he's occupying this quarter. My Marksperson with crossbow has just sort of pivoted on the spot a bit. My Fanatic, who survived, has decided to come up over this way. My opponent's Marksperson is in this corner here after having reacted. My opponent's Alchemist has stayed put, and because of the entanglement, my Alchemist has stayed put as well. So for my shooting, due to my Alchemist being entangled, he won't be doing anything. It's just going to be this Marksperson is going to fire at this Alchemist. Once again, within 18 inches, so it is just going to be a roll to hit. It's a hit. We're going to see if I can get that again for the wound. Damage 4, resistance 3, because it's no staff in shooting. Ooh, that's 2 wounds. That's a critical. So that puts her down to 1 remaining. No, even after that spectacular bit of shooting, my opponent is going to use their Bounty of Life and just take 2 of those wounds away. That's it. So that's the number 5 used. And for the last bit of shooting in this phase, the Marksperson is going to try again at firing at the Fanatic. So it's going to be, originally it was a -2 with a +1. This time it's going to be a -3 because they already reacted or moved in the previous phase. So it's going to be a 5 to hit this time. And that's a hit. Let's see if they can roll to wound. And it is. There goes the Fanatic. So with the shooting phase over and done with, we move to the combats. We only have 1, my opponent's Alchemist charging my Alchemist. I can't charge because I am still entangled, but they are going to blop into me and then roll their 1 attack, hitting on a 3. And it doesn't hit. I'll retaliate with my 1 attack, hitting on a 3. It does, requiring a 5 or 6 because they are damage. No, they're resistance 4 with that staff. No, and I need to try and disengage, which I do. So that moves me back there, like so. And my opponent gets to roll to see how far they go. 6. I'm guessing, given that this is the last combat and the end of the game, they're probably just going to stay put to deny me that quarter. Yep, that's it. And that is the end of the game. So we have worked out the quarters. It's this quarter over here is held by the Barbarians for the Followers of Nature's Bounty. This quarter over here is held by my Marksperson for the Long Drawn Death. This quarter over here is held by the Marksperson for the Followers of Nature's Bounty. And this quarter over here is a draw between our 2 Alchemists. So it is a victory for the Followers of Nature's Bounty. And that's the end of this battle report for Age of Alchemy. The Followers of Nature's Bounty having a resounding win there with 2 quarters to the Long Drawn Death's 1. That is all we have time for today with this battle report. Join us next time where we will look at the Mysteries of the Dark, fighting off against the Spark of the Free People. If you're looking to know more about Age of Alchemy and to get a copy of the rulebook, the expansions, tools and all the support that we offer, head over to our Patreon page at the end link and you will be able to find tiers there. If you join at the Novice tier or the Local Hero tier, you can get access to the full rulebook, all the expansions, all the support, everything that we offer the game. Thank you for joining us and see you next time.